Hey, you.
Hey, Melanie.
I joined the wrong meeting. Shocker. I was
How
like,
are you?
good. How are you? I was
Good.
like participants not there. There's like, I'm like, oh, this is not the right one. Okay, now I gotta figure out how to make you like co-person.
If you go to participants and then you go to my name and go over to more,
Yeah, I was
you
doing
should be
it.
able to select that and make me co-host.
Do, do, do. I clicked you, just said like chat. Try that again. More. There it is. Make co-host. There you go.
Yep, you are now the co-host. Okay. Yeah, so I can share. Yep. Let's see. That's the I just want to make sure you can see that.
Yeah.
And does that look good?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm so jealous you got to go to Palm Springs.
Yeah, it was well. I didn't really get to spend any time at the conference, honestly. I was working on the 6th and 7th, and then I drove because I was up in Northern California. I drove down. I didn't get there till like 10 p.m.
Yeah.
So I was invited to do an Ignite,
Yeah.
which was Friday evening, and I couldn't do it, unfortunately.
Oh,
I know.
you've been
So
so good.
I'm hoping they'll ask me again next year. I think Peg Cagle was like, "Oh, we'll just put you as deferred." So next year I'm gonna block it out.
I love that place. I could live there if I was
I
rich.
know. I know. Um, yeah, it's like if I couldn't live here where we are, it would be there.
I may have to check out where you are. Like we're thinking about retiring and getting serious about it. And I really need to be a place where there's not like oak trees, elm trees,
Right,
grass.
right,
Hi,
right.
Jackie. We, we zoomed home so we could get here so we wouldn't be stuck in. I drive not quite an hour and a half to work, and Jackie's about an hour and 15. So
Oh, geez.
we didn't want to stay at work to do the meeting. It's
Hi,
worth it.
Jackie. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
What's your position, Jackie?
I'm the director of curriculum instruction, but
Oh, nice.
at our place, you just wear so many hats. I don't know if one
Be
job describes
careful.
any of us.
That's what I used to do, and look, I ended up with my hair. I wore so many hats.
Yeah.
You meet a million people, TJ. We actually have a picture of you and Jackie and me and Sherry from Chicago.
Oh, yes. Yes, I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not looking. I need to put the people. I have a camera on. There we go. Now I can look and see people at the same time as I look like I'm looking at the camera. Ah, better.
When I looked, there were like 5 people registered and us. So hopefully people, and I reminded people today too. So we're still a couple of minutes early.
Yeah.
Do you know Norma Gordon? She's leading the LM Math Chat tonight. She signed up to. I asked people to text me too if they didn't get in because I've had some issues with people
I
not.
do not know her. No, I do not.
Hey,
Hey.
there's Annie. Or your
I
ears burning, Annie. I was like talking about you today. Shocker. Well, I talk about you a lot at schools, but
I talked about you on Saturday. I was talking to Joe Bowler, and I told her your story of the girl in your class when you're doing the week of inspirational math who cried because she said, "You mean I'm not stuck like this?"
yeah.
Mm.
Which I just find like so deep. And so I shared that with her and Kathy Williams, and she was like, "Thank you so much for sharing that." I said it was said, I wish Melanie could share it with you because then it has even more depth, but it's still amazing. She agreed.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Annie, I missed you in Palm Springs.
I saw you walk across a room at one
Yeah.
point. I was like, that's. That's TJ. Yeah.
I came in late Friday and then I presented Saturday morning. So like I really didn't have a conference experience at all. I
Yeah.
think I went to 2 sessions after mine and then the closing.
Yeah. And then did you get to go to Pride stuff?
I did. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
All right. Then you
I
at
have
least
friends
got
who,
to do some Palm Springs things.
yeah. I just flew back Wednesday because I have friends that live there.
Oh,
So
nice.
I have a free place to stay. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Annie, the other person is Jackie. Jackie's my immediate supervisor. She's our curriculum specialist coordinator person. And Jackie, this is Annie Fetter, the Notice and Wonder Woman.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi, nice to meet you.
I will have to bail if I get a phone call. I think she's calling at 6, but who knows? You know, just so you know, if I disappear, it's not because I'm not having a good time, but
No worries.
yeah, too many things going on. I'm sure you all know the story.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to make sure I'm not getting any emails too. Nope. Nope. So far good.
So it's actually pretty chilly in Florida right now.
Are they iguanas falling out of the trees? I keep seeing it.
No, it's not that chilly. Maybe north of here, but here it hasn't gotten that chilly yet.
That always cracks me up.
I do. I'm gonna go collect them in a bucket and throw them in the river. Like,
Yeah.
I stand the iguanas here. They're so gross.
Laura, she puts pictures of them outside of her window on
Yeah.
Facebook. It cracks me up.
The problem is they're an invasive species. They're not native and they
Yeah.
have no natural predator, so they're
Yeah.
just everywhere.
Before the hurricane, before the first one, Ian, with the last, like that year when we were on Sanibel, we were at this intersection and there were so many iguanas, we couldn't count them. There were over 100, like in just in one, like at an intersection. Like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that was creepy. Darlene just joined. She is an instructional coach with us at OCIC. Darlene TJ is our,
Hey, darling.
and he's an author, former teacher. He's been a curriculum specialist. And then Annie Fetter is the other person, and I was talking about her in the car today. She's a Notice and Wonder Woman. Talk about all the time.
Good to meet you.
You too. Oklahoma's one of 5 states I have not been to yet.
So
We're a flyover.
I've got this harebrained idea, y'all. Like I want to zoom you all into our coaching, like the teachers, and Annie knows this, they don't get training on how to use the curriculum or whatever. And like if I could zoom you guys in to talk about just the different things, I think they would be more invested in trying to figure out the components of their curriculum.
Yeah, it's so tiring, all these programs that districts end up spending a lot of money on, and then it's really not. I mean, of course, it's the quality of the program, but it's more about how it's implemented. And so many times the challenge is it's not implemented well, or teachers aren't supported to implement it, and then it doesn't work out well.
And I've talked to you a little bit, TJ. Like in Oklahoma, we have adjunct teachers, and the only qualification is you have some background experience working with kids and you're 18 and have graduated high school. And so you have all of the typical challenges. And then I have really great teachers. And one of the teachers I met with this week, she's like, you mean I can't just teach them, like she's doing second grade, to carry the one and the procedure for like double digit addition. Like I have to teach like what is all this stuff in the book. And so
Right.
hi Norma. And so hearing from the people about just the creating understanding and connection to the math would be really good. So we're 5 minutes in. I don't want to take your time, TJ. Norma, I would introduce you, except I just know your name is Norma and you're leading my chat tonight. She's leading Ellen math chat tonight. She's doing Which One Does It Belong in a really cool, different way. So
Cool.
Hey everyone. Yes, thanks for the extra invite. It's always good. Annie and I go way back, so I've been doing this for a while, and just excited to be here talking to folks about math. Once you leave a school system, it's hard to stay connected, so appreciate it.
Yeah, glad you're here. So TJ, I'm gonna let you start, and then if people come in, we'll just let them catch up if that's cool with you.
Yeah, that sounds good. Awesome. Great. Well, before I introduce myself, I'll just say this is part of a talk I did at the first NCTM NCTE joint conference that happened in New Orleans 2 years ago. And I also have to share, I was just asked to be the chair of the next one, and I had to say no because I'm going to be in Spain. So it's a good reason. I won't be there when the conference is happening. So, but I really bummed I don't get to do that opportunity. You don't get asked those things very often. So anyhow, originally I'd called this Math for All, Embracing Diversity Through Windows, Mirrors, and Sliding Glass Doors. And I hear a lot of people talk about windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors. If you've never heard about that before, I'll talk about where it came from. But before I gave my talk, I'd gone to someone else's talk. I think I have it in my notes. It was Dr. Sonia Cherry Paul, and she did a presentation about why critically building classrooms are needed and how to do it. And she talked about mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. So I want to change my title, and I just want to be really transparent about it. That I used to say windows first, and now I say mirrors. And I'll talk about, well, the reason why is because we want to privilege putting first mirrors is the others seeing themselves reflected. So, historically in literature, right, it's been very much about the dominant culture. And so making sure we're making sure there are mirrors available to our now very diverse student population. I think the last census said that the first time that the student population of K-12 schools is more non-white than it is white. So that's a really important thing, right? If our student population is representative like that, then we need to make sure we have materials that mirrors back to them who and what they are. So that's my first little part there. Let's see. So this is me. I've stopped counting how many years I've been in education because it's somewhere close to 30, but not quite 30. So it's somewhere around like 27, 28. I don't know, say 20, more than 27 now. And I started life as a special educator, and I had a literacy degree. I had a K-12 consulting teacher, which was special education, and a K-12 reading coordinator. And when I got into working in my school, I worked in two different school districts in Vermont, where I lived and grew up, and where Annie grew up just 10 minutes from me, basically. And we didn't cross paths till we met nationally at an NCTM conference. Uh, and I had a goal to be like a reading teacher or a librarian, media specialist, something. And it just, in my district, I was low on the totem pole and or low on the pecking order. And I saw that I would never be able to get one of those jobs because they were limited. So an opportunity came along to be trained as a math recovery specialist. And there was full funding for it. It was like Medicaid funding. And my principal was like, can I have someone, like anybody interested? I have this money I want to spend on this. And unfortunately for me, it was like my first year in my school district. All the other people that would have done this because they had more seniority than I did were all pregnant. So because a pregnant woman, I was able to, as a younger teacher or newer to teaching, was able to get this training. So 2001, I was trained as a math recovery specialist, and then the next year took the leader training. So I learned that I really loved working with adults as much as I love working with students. And I kind of like really what I love is the intersection of those two things. So how do you help teachers be better teachers while also working with children at the same time? So for the last 10 or plus years, I've been a private consultant. I've worked with some national organizations, and I've also traveled abroad to Africa and to Bangkok, worked with international schools. And then, like Melanie said, during COVID, I had an opportunity to work on the Math by the Book series, which is a K-5 series, and that takes children's literature and 20 titles per grade level, K through 5. I co-wrote the third grade. And so it does a bunch of, which I'm going to show you, a bunch of math activities, games, number sense routines, all of the above kind of stuff. In the last couple months, I've had two other books that I've contributed to come out. High Impact Tutoring in Math and ELA. I contributed with Dr. Nikki Newton and Dr. Terry Royer. So that was exciting. And then I didn't even think this book was coming out, but I had written a lot of stuff for it, Effective Teaching Practices with Dr. India. So I've linked those all in there if you have any interest in checking them out. So I think I already know who all of you are, so I don't need to ask that, but I do have a copy of these slides here if you want to grab those. Oh, sorry, I did not put this in my notes, so I'm just gonna grab it and throw it in the chat. There we go. And then I'll put that in the chat for you. Oops. Okay, there's the chat. Okay. And Melanie, you'll let me know if any questions or anything come up in the chat, right?
Yes, I will.
Awesome. You can find me on social media on Twitter, which I still call Twitter, and Blue Sky. So I do have a question. If you tweet on Twitter or X, what do you do on Blue Sky? I guess you BS. That's what I've been saying. So I BS on Blue Sky and I tweet on Twitter, all about education and math. That's it. That's the only thing. So if you are on those, please follow me. So I'd love to start thinking about this question. What happens when we teach mathematics solely through numbers and equations? Um, right, this is how I learned math in elementary school and high school, middle school. It was a lot of just numbers that had no connection to life, and it was a lot of rote learning, a lot of teachers telling us how to do it, and then practicing a bunch on a page, do the odd numbers. And I happen to be very good at that, just getting correct answers but I was quite dismayed later when I started teaching, and that's not how we were teaching. And it didn't work. It doesn't work with all kids or most kids. And so we really are expected now to think about application and problem solving, about being mathematically proficient, which is more than just get the right answer, right, and get it or get things quickly. It's about being flexible. It's about all these different things, about having efficiency. So it's not just about under answers, it's really about understanding. And I know I still am unlearning and reteaching myself how to operate with fractions, that keep, flip, turn, butterfly method I had learned. And I've seen so many kids who learn these procedures too early and then struggle to then make sense of them and make sense of math at the grade level they're at. So I want to think about how a story context might help this. Um, so we'll get into that, but I want to think about what do we want students to know and be able to do in math class? Well, we want them to be curious about math, right? Above all, that's one of the first things. And if you ever work with kindergartners or preschoolers, they're very curious, right? That they come programmed to us as very curious beings. So unfortunately, I've seen some older in elementary school students who aren't so curious anymore. And I can't help but think like that happens because we almost beat it out of them or teach it out of them. We definitely want them to be flexible in their computation. I'll never forget this third grader I worked with at a school district, or a teacher I worked with whose third grader was very fast with their computation and they had very good skills, like they could do algorithms very quickly and typically get the right answer. So they had a high class, a medium class, and a low class for third grade they were tracking, which she didn't agree with, but she was new to the district. I didn't agree with, but I was just the consultant. So anyhow, this kid who was in the high group, we pulled them all together when she had her whole class, and we did some number sense routine. He got the wrong answer because he was doing an algorithm in his head to solve this mental math. We were doing like a number talk. And she was like, "That's so great," because she was happy because she's like, he thinks he's like head and shoulders above all these other kids, but he's so inflexible with his thinking. Like he could only think about lining it up and doing the traditional algorithm, and he couldn't be flexible. So when other kids explained their thinking and they had more logical ways, he couldn't, had no ability to think about the way they thought about it. So he was inflexible. So we really want kids to be flexible with their computation. We definitely want them to have conceptual understanding and number sense, right? This, you can't teach number sense, but you can build it over time. It's through multiple experiences. It's through experiences, of course, a school year as well as across multiple school years. We want to be able to model with mathematics in lots of different ways. So thinking about different models, different tools, different manipulatives. And then we need to be able to have them communicate their mathematical thinking. And I always say, like, great, if you have a way that you can solve this, but you can't explain it so someone else can understand, then you're not quite ready to maybe use that way or to have that be your only way. So definitely need students to have mathematical reasoning. One of the things I love to talk about is the Fortune 500 companies. If you think back to 1970, which is the year I was born, uh, calculation skills was the number two thing that Fortune 500 companies were looking for. And by 1999, almost 30 years later, that had slipped. Calculation skills had slipped down to number 12. And if you look now in 2025 at any list that talk about what do Fortune 500 companies looking for, it is not anything near like writing skills, typing skills, calculation skills. It's all really dynamic stuff, like the ability to work, with collaboratively with lots of different people, the ability to problem solve. So we need to have kids that can think and reason and make sense of math, not just get answers, because that's not enough in today's world. You're not going to be able to impress any kind of employer from a well-paying job if you just can get answers and get them quickly, but you can't explain how you got there. And then lastly, of course, we want students that can be problem solvers. And when I was talking about those top 10 skills of Fortune 500 companies, some of the biggest, most top skills that are there now are really being problem solvers, being inventive, thinking outside the box, all those kind of things. So how can we help make math connected so our students are more interested, maybe more engaged, but also are invested because it makes sense to them? So first, we can launch lessons about a particular math skill using a story or a concept with a story. We can use the story context then to teach and practice the skill kind of after we've read the story. And we can focus on deep understanding and application of the skill. So these are kind of the three things that helped us, the author team, when we worked on the Math by the Book series. And this is what we did. And I'm not here to sell it to you, but although I do think it's a great resource, and I'm sure Melanie can back that up. But I have lots of resources to share with you that you could also do this on your own and not have to buy this series. So I love this quote from Dr. Bishop, Dr. Rudine Bishop. Would someone mind just unmuting and reading that so it's not just my voice the whole time?
When children cannot find themselves reflected in the books they read, or when the images they see are distorted, negative, or laughable, they learn a powerful lesson about how they are devalued in the society of which they are a part. Dr. Bishop.
Yeah. Thanks, Darlene.
Mhm.
So that presentation I went to, Dr. Cherry Paul, this is where I learned more about Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop. She has passed away, but was very instrumental. She was more in the literacy side of the world. I don't think she was really known in mathematics, but she's the one who talked about mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. And of course, like I said earlier, a lot of people call it windows mirrors, right? I often, and I myself did, always had windows first. So she talked about how books can function as a mirror. We can reflect and see ourselves or someone similar to us. They can be windows where we can look into someone else's world. So if I don't live in Africa, maybe I can read a book about somebody in Africa or a character in Africa and learn a little bit, get a glimpse into someone's life, someone who has a lived experience in a different continent, in a different country. And then sliding glass doors, which I'm still grappling with a little, but it's really an opportunity not only to look into someone else's world, but to step into it. So my mind with that keeps going to like, oh, maybe I cook something or I do, a traditional dish from a different culture. But besides that, I have a hard time thinking about how you do a sliding glass door. So mirrors and windows are much easier when we think about our own classrooms and our own schools and how do we have materials that are reflective of those. So I have this QR code and I'll throw this in the chat as well. But this is just information that I had learned at that presentation that I went to that made me change the order of the words about Dr. Rudine Bishop. So I just wanted to share that so that you have it. But it's also linked on the slide there if you want to keep that for later. So before we jump into some exact examples, I want to just think about a balanced math block because I have some examples for most of these. Unfortunately, unless someone tells me I'm not aware of any research out there that suggests or supports any kind of a setup for a math block or for time. I can just talk about what I see because I get to work in lots of different schools in different states. I think in the last several years or 10 years, I've worked in like 22 states. But the schools that I see that tend to do better in math and tend to have more stronger, robust math programs have about 75 to 90 minutes dedicated to math a day. And so when you have that, then how do you break that down? What do you do during that time? So number sense routines are really important. Those are kind of the thing that should happen every day. They're a daily routine, and we're somewhere with a 75 to 90 minute time frame. You could do like 10, 15 minutes. And then we'd have like kind of a main or a mini or focus lesson. There's lots of different names for that. And it's somewhere around 20 to 30 minutes, somewhere in that time frame, depending, could be a little less depending on the topic. And then having some workshop time where students are like autonomously like working on things, making some choices. And that can range from 30 to 45 minutes. And then finally, you have reflecting on learning, which is a 5 to 10 minute, right? Just wrap up, getting kids to focus on what they've learned. So that's just kind of a general. There's no like hard, like you must do 10 minutes of this, or it has to be in this order. I've certainly done lessons where I've done the workshop time almost the whole time because guess what? It's vacations coming up, and we have to I have a lot of stuff to catch up on, and maybe I'm doing some one-on-one interviews, and that's a great format for doing all those things I need to do. So I want to jump in and think about exploring some math concepts through stories. Is anyone familiar with this book called Mango Abuela and Me by Meg Medina? Okay, so Melanie's heard of it. This is one of the books that I wrote for. This is actually the first book I wrote for. And when I was doing the writing, I lived in Burlington, Vermont at the time. Uh, and I'd worked in South Burlington, which, if you know Burlington, where I lived in Burlington, to get to South Burlington, especially at like traffic time, was not good. So I was like, I'm not going to tap into all of my teacher friends in my old school district. So I adopted a new teacher friend at a school that was like a mile from my house. So over the course of 2 years, I adopted two of her third grade classes and would think about like, what do I do with this book? How do I make math come out of this? Because this is not like a book that was written to focus on math. When we were selecting books, we wanted to have really good literature, and we wanted to have literature that was providing mirrors and windows for students of lots of different mirrors for students, as well as windows. So this one is about this little girl and her grandmother. Her grandmother comes from a different country. She speaks Spanish, does not speak English, and the girl speaks English, does not speak Spanish yet. They don't really get along at first because they have that language barrier. And slowly over the course of time, as the grandmother stays with them, they start to learn each other's language and they develop a strong relationship. And so it has, of course, a happy ending. But one of the things that they do is they bake cookies together. So one of the ideas I had was, well, what if we have this image of, these cookies? I'll pretend these are cookies, and just put it up and kind of flash it. So, like, what did you see? How many? What did you notice? Of course, what do you start with? What do you notice and wonder? I have to make that clear because Annie's here. But then you would, oh, I saw some yellow things, or I saw, arranged in rows. Great. And then we could get into some more mathematical questions like, how many did you see? How did you see them? So did anybody have a notice or wonder or how many you saw, how you saw them?
I just noticed the array.
So you noticed it was an array. Let me put it up again quickly so everyone can see. I don't want to leave it up too long. Anything else?
5 groups of 3 or 3 groups of 5, depending on,
Okay.
yeah.
You're seeing groups of 3 or groups of 5. Okay, great. So I'll bring it up. And then of course through I could almost do this in a number talky way. I say that because I have very strong opinions about what a number talk should be and shouldn't be. And I would call this more of like an image chat. I could talk about some of those groups like Melanie had talked about the 3 groups of 5. Or of course I could circle the 5 groups of 3. Which is great to get at that whole idea that like 3 times 5 equals 5 times 3, but it's not the same as. Because like if this is like a row of chocolate cookies and then a row of peanut butter cookies and then a row of, snickerdoodle, like that's very different if I get a group of one row, all the same flavor, or I get a flavor of each, right? Those are actually different things. What's the same is the value of the total is the same. So it's the same value, but it's actually different things when we start thinking about real life. So that was one of the number sense routines that I wrote for this book. And then, I went and tried it out with actual kids and they liked it. And I actually got in like October of third grade, I got kids talking about division. And Sue O'Connell, who's the main core author of all the whole project, she was like, we can't use that because this is more about like an introduction to multiplication. So I had this like awesome like picture of my number talk or image chat I did, and we couldn't use it unfortunately because there was division in there. Um, so that's just one example. There was another one I did with eggs because they also cooked and they used eggs. So there's lots of ways to kind of take something from the book and just kick off. And my experience with those third graders, 2 different groups, was anything I did when I read a book to them, and I have a literacy background, so we do the voices, we do the pause, and we do the notice, and what do you think, the prediction, all of that. It's an interactive read aloud. But anything I asked them to do after that was mathematically related, they like jumped right into. It was like they were just eating out of my hand. It was so easy to get them to do anything. I had games we played, I had problems we solved, and some of it worked better than others, but and that all shaped what ended up in the series. So that's a third grade example. Another example that gets into kind of number sense routines, but also a focus lesson is Grandma's Purse. Anybody familiar with this? This is awesome. This is by Vanessa Brantley Newton. And one of the things I learned writing this book is you can find someone on YouTube reading any children's book. So if there's ever a book that you're like, I don't know that book, just look on YouTube and someone is there reading it. And this one, you can find the author, Vanessa Brantley Newton, reading the book because I didn't know this book prior to Math by the Book. So in this book, this little girl is, well, of course, we'd ask, like, how does this girl feel? Why do you think so? Right? Get some of those kind of pre-reading kind of what do you notice about the title? What about the cover? What's your prediction? All those kind of good pre-reading things. Talk about the author. Do we know any other books by that author? Um, and why might Grandma's Purse make her happy, right? Because she looks very happy there. So we get all those predictions. Um, so this is grandma, and when she comes over, she has this huge purse she has, and she has all these things in it, and she has, quirky names for all her things. Like instead of perfume, she calls it smells good, I think, something like that. So she goes and the little girl keeps pulling things out of this purse. And finally at the end, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there's a coin purse in there, there's hairpins, there's lipstick, there's perfume, there's all these things. And at the end, there was her own little bag for her. So she got all excited because she had her own little bag. There, as you can see, she's put some lipstick on, she's put the sunglasses on. And then the question is like, what do you think she's going to put in her bag? Um, so with first graders, the school district in one of the districts I work with in Connecticut that has integrated the Math by the Book series at each grade level. I actually got to teach this lesson to some first graders. So of course you do some after reading questions, right, and summarize and all those things. But then we want to get into the math part of it. So this is a number sense routine that that's like which one doesn't belong, but we called it alike and different. So, what might you think first graders would notice here about what's the same and what's different, or what's alike and what's different? Feel free to drop something in the chat or, good question, Norma.
They're both arranged, but they're arranged differently.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
first graders would see the numbers of pink and like they both have pink, they both have blue, but they're not the same color blue.
Yeah.
They would notice.
Yeah.
that.
The one on the right has a green, the one on the left has a red. So, right, first graders would be very focused on those colors. Did anybody notice the holes in the middle? Right? They all have those four holes, but you could certainly have buttons that have different number of holes. Yeah. And then Norma, I loved your question previously about time perspective, where this is counted at both literacy and math. And one of the things I always talk about is, what I hear from generalist elementary educators is I don't have enough time for anything. And so how great can we have a read aloud during reading time or count it as reading time, and then I can launch right into my math time. So I feel like if you're going to use math time to do read aloud, then you should be using some literacy time to do some other math, like follow-up stuff. But yeah, I think they're definitely, but it's a way to be efficient with your time for
And
sure.
to TJ along that lines, like you were talking about the perfect math block in 75 minutes, that doesn't exist. But if
Mm,
you launched this in the reading and then followed it up with your number
right,
routine, you would gain time.
right, exactly, exactly. Or if you're reading at math time again, you do some of your math at reading time, right? Because otherwise we always shortchange. So what kind of math standards do you think we could explore in like a main lesson with this story context? Any thoughts about that?
So I taught middle school mostly, even though I'm an elementary math specialist. I didn't spend a huge amount of time in the elementary classroom. So even just with that array, or even in like the collections, like the ratios, like doing those things, and then even with those buttons, like that you could like you talked about those holes in the middle and things like that. You could think about like the relationships and the ratios and all of those things.
Absolutely. Yeah, we get into some sorting. How are they the same? How are they different? Um, so what we focused on was really counting, right? Because there's so many different items that were in grandma's purse. So then you can, and this is where teachers, make it as grand as you want to, or as basic as you want to. You could just have brown paper bags, different ones. Or you could have, I've had teachers that had, different little bags and they had just gone to like a yard sale or a hand-me-down store and gotten a bunch of different bags and then put different things in them. So you could have, some bears in ones, counters in other, and then as a class, you kind of model this, right? Like turn to partner, predict how many are in the bag, then you dump it out, you count how many, then you draw the items, you record that, and then you kind of put everything back and get a different bag and do the same thing. So this is like early first grade, right? We're just doing one-to-one correspondence. Um, we're doing all of these things to just practice counting and to focus on number with young students. And then, of course, you can modify that based on the students in your class, right? I might have a group of students that really they don't have one-to-one correspondence beyond 5. So I'm going to give them a bunch of bags that are maybe 6. So I'm stretching them just beyond 5, but I'm maybe not going to give them one that has 10 or more. So that's going to be, dependent on the students in your class. Let's see, Norma's putting some stuff in here. Yeah, counting more than, less than equalities. Parent night, bring a bag. Yeah, that's a great idea. I do have some parent connections here though. So another kind of piece that we could do. And one of the things in Math by the Book is there's all these ideas, and it's not intended to be like, do all of these in the math, in your lesson. Because I've had some teachers that are like, I can't do this all. And it's like, well, it's more like a buffet, like pick and choose what makes sense and try not to do everything in one day. Because that's not realistic. Bye, Annie. Good seeing you. So this one's called Oops, and this is where we talk about Grandma Mimi's purse getting knocked over and everything falls out. So you have, again, different bags, and then you have to sort the items. And then how did you sort them? And then count how many were sorted in each group. So you could have, right, bags of buttons, you could have bags of bobby pins, you can have bags of bears, you can have bags of different Unifix cubes, different plastic animals, whatever. There's so many different manipulatives in younger classrooms. Um, and then you can, as a teacher, you can just kind of watch and listen as they sort and count. Um, oh, and then the other one that is really great because I was always shocked when we started with the new standards that we have, that I heard kindergarten and first grade teachers say, well, coins are not in our standards. And yes, they are. You talk about ones and fives and tens, that's a great context for it. So to me, it's assumed that they're there. But this one really gets into because they talk about coins in grandma's purse, and she has a coin purse in the big purse. So then students can do that and have bags of coins, and then use a 10 frame to like see how many there are. And how do I know there's 10? Well, it's five and two more, or it's 10 minus three, or it's two and two and three, however they see that. So again, so many different directions you can go here. And this could actually even work into like a workshop time, right? Because we could have these bags, once kids are familiar with them, that could be a station they go to and work on and do some independent work with. And then to extend that, this gets at what Norma was saying, right? You could have kids make their own bags at home. So the directions are for homework, you go back home with this bag, you put 1 to 10 of a different items in it, and it might be pasta or it might be rocks or pine cones or whatever, hopefully school appropriate things, right? And and then they bring them back and then they're connected to that because that's something they put together with their families. And then you do those same activities, but now with items that came from home, which is also kind of bringing, right? It could be, there might be some cultural things from families from different cultures that might show up and invite opportunity for that to be shared. So thinking about this, I know we didn't really have a lesson, but thinking about all these different ways to extend math from that book, what, how do you think that might enhance a lesson with students? What do you think that's going to change or be different?
When I'm working with the teachers, we're working on piloting a culturally relevant framework pedagogy. And
Mhm.
in math, the teacher's like, I'm having a really hard time like doing that in math class. And I tell them, if you start with a story, you're going
Yeah,
to then tie that to their lived experience, which is part of the standards and which is culturally relevant, but like they've like just getting that idea of getting reading or a story and into that space, and then the kids see themselves as mathematicians.
right. Right. So you're certainly going to have students going, oh, math does make sense to me, or math is related to me, right? When I see myself represented or part of my culture represented. So that's one way to really help students feel like all students belong in part of math, for sure.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I
Yeah.
also like the story element, especially when it's picture books.
Yeah.
And the math is not just numbers on a blank white page.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
because it's all related to grandma's purse,
yeah.
and I can just tell you from my own personal experience, mostly with those third graders, they literally ate up anything I threw at them. I was like, here, try this, do this problem, play this game. I mean, they loved it, because it was connected to that book. So that's just been my personal experience.
And you're right, TJ, too, because I did the Bilal Cook's doll, and just from like it's not part of the third grade, but they went into fraction multiplication because we made the doll, and they were
Yeah.
like, well, how would we make it for our class? Like it just leads to like everybody can get in, but then the ceiling is just unlimited.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great thing to say. Ceiling is definitely unlimited with this. Which does become a little bit of a challenge because I think some teachers are like, oh my God, I have to do all of this. And it's like, no, no, no. Like pick and choose which pieces make sense, right? And your let your kids kind of guide the way. So like I said earlier, these books were not written as like this wasn't written as a counting book, but it really was a great book that not only honored a different culture or different kind of mirror of kid from an authentic author, but also kind of set this context that made kids want to count things. Um,
Darlene is an abuela, and she says she brings her abuela bag when she goes and sees her
oh
grand.
yes,
Yeah, he likes to take the stuff out and
it's so
count it.
true.
So
Right,
yeah,
right.
it gives the
That's awesome.
context.
So you stole my thunder a little bit with Bilal Cook's doll. That's all right. This is another third grade story, and this one I'm just going to give some examples around like there's some main lessons examples, but then like some workshop time. So again, we do all those before reading stuff that I'm not going to do with you right now. But in this book, Bilal's dad is cooking doll. So, right there we have a nice like dad's cooking. It doesn't have to be mom. But it could be okay if mom was cooking too. And he calls Bilal in because he's like, you got to help me make this. And Bilal's playing with his friends and they help make the doll, but then the doll has to cook for a really long time. And so all his Bilal's a little nervous because his friends, he's like, doll is my favorite food and he wants his friends to like it, but then he's nervous they won't. So they help cook and put in the different flavors and different types of doll. And then he's like, well, what do we do? So they go off and they play outside, they play hopscotch, they go back to dad. Is it done? No, it all takes a long time. So then they go to the lake and go swimming and they do cannonballs, they go to the pool, um, and skip rocks, do all these things. So they have all these activities they're doing. And then finally, dad says the doll is done, come back. So they go and they eat it. And of course, his friends love it. So it's a happy ending, which of course is great. They all love doll. So in Math by the Book, we say honor the book, but explore the math. So what math might you choose for this story?
I'm gonna cheat because I did it.
Yeah.
So the kids, like we made doll, and in the book I asked them, and we used a pressure cooker, so it didn't take a really long.
Oh, nice.
So I had
That-
them use
That's a
context
great cheat.
clues from the book, like how long do you think it took Bilal and his family? Like how long did it take them to cook it? How do you know? So what time do you think? And so they looked at the pictures. Well, we think it's this time, and we think it got ready at this time because of the context clues of the visuals and all of the things. And then I can't remember how many hours they came up with. And I did it with a couple classes. And then I said, and then it took us like it literally took us 4 minutes in the pressure
Yeah.
cooker. And they're
Nice.
like,
Oh,
oh
that's
my
awesome.
gosh, how much faster was that? And so
Right.
explored the time because they were also doing time, but we did
There's
increment too. So it was
yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, so ours choice was definitely kind of elapsed time, right? Exploring how long. So different problems that you can create, word problems that kids solve based on that. And this is also a perfect opportunity to introduce the number line. So when kids are solving this, right, like you can use the number line in lots of different ways. I can get from 1:15 to 1:40 p.m. because a.m. would be too late sleeping time in multiple different ways. So here I'm getting calculations, I'm getting, a model and a number line, I'm getting different ways to jump count. Um, and then we can have more explorations like how are these two different? Well, one asks about what time they stop hiking, and one asks when they start hiking. I'm sorry, I'm going fast here because I'm looking at time and I don't want to keep you late. But there's so many problem possibilities with this story, especially around kind of elapsed time. And then the workshop time of it is this game. I did not create this game. Unfortunately, I can't take credit for it, but I created lots of other games. So you have these time cards, and you spin the spinner to see how many minutes it takes. and then you get your time, and then you have to figure out like, so if I got 40 minutes, how long would it take from five if I start at 5:05? And then the player, they compare their dinner times, and the one who gets to eat the earliest wins. Like, I mean, it's like such a natural, like, I win because I get to eat first. So, and then you shuffle the cards and kind of start again. Um, and then I'll just share one other game before we wrap, and I share some resources. But because I love this game, I did write. This is Hanukkah Bear, which is about Bubba Brianna, who's there on the cover, and she's nearly blind. So she thinks there's a traditional. Every year, everyone comes to her house, and she makes latkes, and they all eat them. And there's a knock on the door. By Jacqueline. Good seeing you. And it's the bear, and the bear eats all the latkes. And so then when the townspeople come, there's no latkes. So the game I made was, but they all make the latkes, and it ends happily, like all the books. So the game I make was spinning for latkes. So you spin a spinner, multiply by five, and then say the five fact, and then you cover the place on the game board. So you have these stacks of latkes. So, thinking about the benefits of playing a game to practice those skills versus like, here's this worksheet, right? It's like so boring. So much more interactive and fun. And even the best part is you could like send these home, just a copy of the game board, a spinner with a paper clip, like play this with your family at home. So much more meaningful than a worksheet. So I want to get to the resources to share with you, but the research definitely points to that. We want to develop fluency with numbers, not blindly memorize without number sense. So we think math and literature is kind of that great uh, kind of marriage, right? And we wanted them to move from just how to do math to what math to do. So like, oh, there's a problem here. What math am I going to do? So the benefits, I'm just going to click through these, kind of make that engagement, that shared experience, get students talking, connecting to their lives, seeing mirrors as well as windows, and then just bringing energy to the math class and joy. We want joy in the math class. So a couple resources I have. There's Math by the Book, which even if you just saw the books that are listed, there's a list with all the books at each grade level. So you could just kind of see which books you have in your libraries, and then read them and do some math things from them. And then there's more lists here. There's a K2 children's Padlet that Sue O'Connell made and a 3-5 books. So I put those in the chat. And then one of the other co-authors, Georgina Rivera, who's now a principal at a school in Connecticut, she made a culturally relevant children's book Padlet. And I have been working on because I felt a little, I don't know if the word's guilty, but I felt like there was no representation of LGBTQ sensitive literature. So something like, And Tango Makes Three is a great story about two male penguins that raised a chick together, a little kind of orphan chick. So these are books that, I haven't created math extensions, but I feel like math could be extended from those in different ways. So I'll just share that. And you are the first people I have shared this with. I've been working on this. And so if you know of any other books, please feel free to reach out, let me know, and I'll add them in there. But I want to kind of just wrap up with some questions there. Sorry, that was a frantic pace at the end there. We did get a little late start, so I feel okay. Yeah. Any questions or thoughts?
I appreciate you being here with a lot of good ideas to bring into the classroom.
Awesome.
Yes. Thank you, TJ.
You all here.
Part of me just keeps wondering, since we've all been in this space for a while, is why hasn't this happened sooner?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I mean,
and
there's been some attempts, like Marilyn Burns had a whole bunch of stuff she did with books, but yeah, I feel like
great
programs take over, and then when a district has a program, which is most districts, it's really hard to like add a layer on, So one of the things I'd love
Well,
to do is
yeah, And that was my question of time, that we're still thinking in blocks and chunks and not the integration and,
Right.
the transition. You have to transition from one to another, whereas in our
Right.
lives, I just was at a recent conference. I know you're at a lot of conferences,
Yeah.
and I did, Melanie, the kind of breathing break. So that was my session. And one of the participants was like, "This is just so nice. I've just been going from session to session and trying to take everything in." And I'm like, this is what our kids are living with, more so in the middle and the high school.
Yeah.
I really wish there was more of this opportunity in, the middle and high school grades. I tried way back. There was a math mystery. It's called the Parrots Theorem. It was written in French. There was an English translation, and this guy was sent his friend's math library of books, and he had to uncover who actually murdered his friend. So it was not John Grisham, but we read it, and every chapter there was the fundamental theorem of algebra. So as the history of math, and people thought I was insane. I'm like, but no, it's Friday afternoon, and these high school kids just want to read.
Well,
Nice.
and I think too, like TJ was a special education teacher. I'm a special education teacher. That was
Hmm.
first. And I did it naturally. My husband's here, so he can't hear me. I literally have over 1,000 children's books. And I use them in pre-K through every grade I've ever taught. And I even use them with adults. And because there's it's this connection. Like storytelling is important, seeing yourself is important, but it's also context, like Darlene said. And it's like I teach a high school class. And I read a children's books today, and the kids were enthralled by it. Like they love being read to, and then they see themselves. And so I think that even our teacher programs, as good as they've gotten, still, like I learned more about it when I was in my master's, but why are we like siloing teachers even in the teacher programs? And
Right.
so they see themselves, I'm a math person or I'm a reading person. They don't see themselves as like, I read all the dang time. I do math all the dang time. I'm a person who does all the things. Like,
Right.
so I think that's why we haven't seen it too, is it's like it's not coming into our universities like it should be. I think
Yeah.
it's
And
Well,
it
the
is
joint
hard.
conference is good though. I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
they brought that, but
Well,
It
again,
is hard to, when you have, when a district has a program, which most do, to then add on a layer of a resource like this, because it's not just added on, it's what in our program does this supplant or replace, right? So we're not adding on time, because most teachers I work with is like they don't have enough time to teach the program they have.
right.
So that's I see as the big challenge. But I see that as like the work that I do is helping teachers to make those decisions. But those should be like district decisions, for
yeah,
sure.
for sure.
Yeah.
But this is great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all for
Thank
having
you
me.
all. Yes, it was awesome.
Darlene, I want to count the plates behind you.
Oh,
Just
Yeah.
let me see.
What do you notice? What do you
You I
wonder?
haven't hung.
Perfect one. Yeah. How do you count them?
Yeah, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Thank you.
There are a few I haven't hung. I'm always looking for more.
Oh, really? Wow.
Nice, nice. All right. Well, I will, hopefully I have not done a Twitter kind of blue sky chat in a while, so I'm gonna like warm up my fingers later,
Yeah,
Melanie.
good luck. I wish I could be there, but I have another thing I'm doing right after this. So
Yeah, we have a really nice group. It'll be fine, Norma. So thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you so much, DJ.
you're welcome.
Thank
Good
you.
seeing you all.
Good.
Yes, nice meeting you, Darlene.
Good to meet you.
Bye.
Bye.